Just so we're clear, if a foreigner comes to your country and demands that you accept their culture as your culture or demands that you change your beliefs, that is not a foreigner. That is not an immigrant. What that is an invader. That is someone that is coming over to your space to take over and invade it. So when you sit there and you look at what's happening in New York, you look at what's happening in Texas, you look at what's happening in the places where these people came from, you look at Somalia, you look at all of these individuals who are being put into a position of power who support this type of invasion. You need to understand what's coming next. They will take away our weapons. They will tell us that we cannot eat certain foods. They will tell us that we cannot go to certain places. They will tell that our women that they have to wear certain clothes. They will tell them that they have to dress modest. They will force them to do a lot of different things. You will have to deal with people praying in the middle of the street while you're driving and stopping you and invading your movement, your space. You need to understand what's taking place in America so that you can understand that these people are not coming here with good intentions. This is not me saying that I hate people. This is me basically saying, look, if you like the fact that America is a free place where you get the freedom to believe in what religion you want to believe in, if you get the freedom to decide what you want to do as long as nobody is getting hurt, if you love that part of America, the freedom of choice part of America, you need to understand when people come over and they say that you don't have a choice, they probably should go because you don't get to tell us what to do in our own country. It's not being rude. It's just saying, hey, look, this country was built in a way where everybody can come here and feel happy and feel blessed and enjoy the fact that this is a free nation, not a nation that will be enslaved by any foreigner invading it.
Good.
Just so we're clear,
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Hope you all been having a great day, following up on a great weekend. If you missed it yesterday, I was debating Destiny and some guy in a beanie. I think it's a way of showing that how cool he is like, I don't even have enough respect for you. I don't know if that's his shtick. I don't know what the deal with the beanie is. I don't know what the deal was. Frankly, I was really unimpressed personally. I was kind of blown away with just how little they had saying freedom of speech or whatever on seditious 6. I just had I was very unimpressed in the sense that everything was, you're stupid, you're retarded, I don't have to listen to you, filled with like swear words. And let me tell you, they never answer. I'm in the middle of answering a question. They never answer. I'm in the middle of answering. It was embarrassing tactics for a 10th grade debate team. That it's like if a 10th grade debate team was engaging like that, and look at it on tape, they'd be like, oh my God, that's humiliating. But it is what it is. It is what it is. My objective there was to stay calm, cool, and collected. I felt like I did that. I lost a little bit there, only when I got like, you're proving my point. You're literally proving my point when you're pointing out just how ridiculous it is that there's some laws which are deemed unconstitutional at one level court and then deemed constitutional later on. How is a member of the military who's acting in the moment, has to make a decision in the moment, able to actually proceed without having hesitancy? In fact, quite the contrary. The objective is that they will have hesitancy, which is what is damaging to our military. Anyone with common sense sees that. You all know that. You all know that. So you all know that they're trying to slow down our military. I didn't say this, and I meant to, so I'm going to just throw this out at you here now. What about if there really are crazy unconstitutional orders? Well, when there's a crazy unconstitutional order, something that is like, there's no question that, okay, this cannot be legal. Yeah, they're not supposed to follow that. They're not supposed to follow that. But, if you talk about, if the president, I'm not talking about Trump, some president 15 years from now basically says, go gas a room full of children, you'd be like, okay, you're a lunatic. No, I'm not doing that. That's what it's meant for. Not like there's a legal question. Maybe it's not unconstitutional. It's like, that's ridiculous. You have to be willfully ignorant of the fact that it's unconstitutional. if you're a member of the military before you can possibly be held to account. But I'm going to get into that more later, as we're going to be talking about the growing color revolution and how the left is basically trying to create an uprising. We sort of touched on it on the debate yesterday. I'm definitely going to be talking to you about that. Also, Alina Habba was removed from being U.S. attorney, at least as of now, and it's likely to hold up that she was removed. I'm going to talk to you about why that is and just what a terrible reflection that is on certain persons. We'll get into that, although you can sort of tell from my thumbnail. What else do we have? Oh, yes. Pete Hegseth trolling using Franklin, which is a cartoon character I never saw before. But yeah, it looks a lot like Tippy Turtle from the old Saturday Night Lives, but I'm just showing my age with that one. And yes, trolling with that. And finally, massive fraud in Minnesota is creating a maelstrom of problems for Tim Walz. And it really is, we're just sort of starting to dig into the tip of the iceberg as to how much we're talking about. Billions in dollars of frauds, estimates of 1.7 billion, and it could be more. Who knows? This is just what we've uncovered so far. And basically swamped with fraud that was purposefully allowed to persist. And we'll look at potential reasons as to why it was allowed to persist and just how ridiculously shameful this is. And frankly, what levels of politics we might be seeing, we should be seeing some sort of crackdown legally. We'll get into that as well. So all of that coming up on tonight's episode of the following program. I hope you stick with me. Hope you stick through the entire thing. If you missed a part, you can come back and catch up later. If you're watching after the show, I urge you to make sure you drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a comment, do all that awesome stuff that feeds the algorithm, because I'm in a new time zone right now. I'm in a new time slot. So the algorithm becomes very, very important. Very, very important. So that's why it's really important you guys hit the like and the subscribe buttons. And if you can drop a comment after we wrap up here, I would be most obliged, because it definitely helps a great deal. And everyone knows I need the help. I really need the help. And speaking of needing the help, Clifford Barnes, I know that face. I know that name. I've seen you before. Welcome back to the following, my brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Shy Cubbies. Look at this, Chicago Cub fan. They're coming in from Chicago. I reach out to you as a new member of the following, and I say to you, we're there with you in heart and spirit in that desolate territory, devoid of common sense in your political leadership there, between the likes of Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker. I feel for you. If you're, unless you had the good sense to basically pack up and leave Chicago, and you're still somehow you're a Chicago Cubs fan, because we all carry our allegiances from our youth. So I wish for you that you're no longer in the Chicago region. I assume that Shy Cubbies must be a Chicago Cub fan. Anyhow, with that, let's get on into today's stories. We all know the Seditious Six and the 90-second message that they put out there, urging our military to basically disobey orders that are unconstitutional, without giving any sort of description as to what is considered an unconstitutional order. This is obviously designed to, there's no possible practical way this could play out other than to put military members who are already in a perilous enough situation into far greater peril by having them pause and try to decide, is this something that is unconstitutional? And then what is unconstitutional? Because judges cannot agree as to what is unconstitutional. We see this all the time. We see that you have a district court judge which says president can't do this, it's unconstitutional, and invariably, once you work your way higher up the chain, it is deemed completely constitutional. So when you're talking about members of our military who are effectuating these orders, are they supposed to guess what's going to happen when this comes down in front of a court? And apparently for most Democrats, the answer is yes. That's exactly what they want them to do. And why would you want them to do that? Basically telling them disobey all orders, which would only have them getting court-martialed. It would be a terrible thing and disastrous for you and me, the Americans who are dependent on our military, to start seeing that happen with any sort of consistency. That consistent disobeying of orders would only create greater problems for our entire country. But that doesn't concern the likes of Mark Kelly.
You can certainly go to the judge, advocate generals, the lawyers, and have a discussion about it. If you don't have time, you just say simply, I'm not going to do that. That's against the law.
I'm not going to do it. That's against the law. I know best. I know the law. All these members say, oh, yeah, I know the law. If you don't have time, just say, I'm not going to do it. You crackpot. You lunatic. This guy really should be prosecuted. This is a violation. This is a pretty clear violation of law. Oh
it puts a lot of burden on the troops to make a decision in real time.
But it's a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military.
And that burden is being created by you. You're creating the burden. You are.
That is their responsibility.
No, it's not.
They can figure.
It's not their responsibility to guess what a judge to be like Nostradamus. Like, oh, this is how a court's going to look at this 4 years from now. Ridiculous.
Out. A reasonable person can tell something that is legal and something that is illegal.
So
clearly not, because you have half the country which is very divided about legal and illegal, depending on who is the one who is making the order. Here's an example. I mean, we'll let him get into his examples.
would you refuse these specific orders to strike drug boats?
Oh, okay.
If you were still in uniform?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay.
The difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a second strike.
Which never happened. That's another hoax. There was no second strike.
And those things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received on how this is all legal. And I was saying weeks.
Really? Do you know how many people Obama issued drone strikes against? Was that all unconstitutional what he did? Something on the order of like 3,700 people killed via drone strike, including hundreds of civilians that he issued drone strikes about. Now, you ask me, I don't think anything he did there was unconstitutional. I think it was all constitutional. I think the president has that prerogative. That's just the way. That's part of the power of the presidency. But this jackass over here is coming along to try and pretend that all of a sudden this is so unconstitutional and you're going to be prosecuted if you do it. Who the hell do you think you are?
Ago, my concern is with the service members that we're gonna put these individuals in a really, really tough decision.
Why are they in a tough decision? This was not unconstitutional 15 years ago when Obama was ordering these strikes. Nothing. None of this.
In a tough place. And they may find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal. It is not fair to them. That's exactly
what you're doing here is so completely corrupt and evil and destructive to our country. It's purposefully destructive because you're basically trying to make sure the military does nothing. That's what he wants. Do nothing. Which means countless individuals would be court-martialed. The default is that an order is constitutional. It has to be so flagrantly unconstitutional, so ridiculously outside the bounds of anything that is properly legal for any member of the military to actually logically be held liable. Now, the implication that we're starting to get from the likes of this Senator Puffyhead is we're going to prosecute you. We're trying to threaten them and scare the military. This is how you start a revolution. Because you're basically trying to handicap the military from acting under threat that you're going to be facing legal prosecution down the road. Not prosecution, legal persecution down the road.
That's why we need presidents and Secretary of Defense who understand the Constitution, who understand the
You don't understand the Constitution.
And have more respect for the Constitution and the country and service members than the whims of a president.
Unbelievable. There's more. This guy spent all weekend just talking to whoever would give him a microphone.
And that is disturbing, just breaking up communities, going after people like Kelly Yu, who is in an ICE detention center.
This is him complaining about Trump enforcing immigration law.
In Phoenix, who I visited, who is a business owner. She's got 70 employees. She fled China 20 years ago, fleeing communist China, came to this country. She is undocumented. Her mom's a U.S. citizen. Her kid's a U.S. citizen. Sister's a U.S. citizen. She has a deportation order. She is no threat to anybody. There are hundreds, if not thousands.
You don't have to be a threat to be here illegally and be deported. What the hell are you talking about? So now you're trying to imply that's unconstitutional? The audacity of these people.
Or tens of thousands of these people.
But these are legal immigrants that he's talking about. And
He's
just
kicked out legal immigrants already. This is kind of more
When?
of the same from this president.
When? Who?
When he says things like third world countries, what is he really saying? I think what he's saying is he
No, I don't give a damn what you think he's saying, because you're obviously so warped you don't understand how the Constitution works or how a military has to function, despite retiring from the military.
doesn't want brown people in our country. And that is
Sorry, I think he was in the Navy. I think he was a captain in the Navy.
disturbing, and it's un-American.
the Trump administration says the man accused of the shootings of the 2 National Guard members wasn't vetted. Now, to be clear, CNN is told that that's not true.
Of just
All right. I'm being told that I forgot locals chat, and that is an accurate claim against me, which has now been remedied. So that has been started. I apologize to locals, folks. So that is done. See? Or there was that. There could have been that. This guy is such a clown. Here they are claiming that there was another legal order. Here you go. Eugene Vindman. Hey, Secretary of War, you criming again? Let there be no doubt you'll be held accountable along with those that execute your legal order. See? The objective here is to try and scare our military out of acting. Because the Washington Post is claiming that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave an order to kill everybody in the first strike on a suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. That's what happens when you shoot a boat with a bomb. That's what happens. After 2 minutes survived, the mission commander ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions, according to 2 sources. Supposedly, that never happened. So these, according to 2 sources, there's always 2 sources. There's always these anonymous sources, which invariably is like the brother of the author or something. I have no idea, and we never find out who these sources are. Never accountability when these sources don't pan out. They're just 2 sources. That's what fake news does. Which reminds me, once I'm mentioning fake news, it was, where were you? Here? Did I save it? I wanted to share with you guys. Here it is. I knew I had it here somewhere. Once we're talking about fake news, this is a good moment for me to share with you some awesome news with respect to the fake news. This is Caroline Levitt. Caroline Levitt.
Yesterday launched a.
We should do this in regular speed because you're all humans and not chipmunks. So we're going to do this in regular speed.
New fake news portal, which I found interesting.
The White House announced a new fake news portal. What?
What is your objective with that, ultimately? And are you going to name the news networks? And are you also going to name some of the correspondents, some which may be here today?
Yes, we are. I'm glad you noticed, much to the dismay of some of your colleagues in the room, John. And I think it goes to our original promise on day one to hold the media accountable, because unfortunately, and we deal with this all day, every day around here, there are so many fake stories that are unfortunately written that have inaccurate characterizations of meetings that took place. And it's all based on anonymous sourcing.
Anonymous sourcing. And according to 2 anonymous sources, Pete Hegseth ordered a second strike.
And, the standard for journalism, unfortunately, has dropped to such a historic low in this country. And again, we deal with it every day, where you can have an anonymous source who has no idea what they're talking about, 0 credibility, call up a reporter in Washington and say, hey, I heard this. And then the next thing you know, it's on the front page of the New York Times. It's really incomprehensible. We appreciate the journalists, some of those who are in this room who do reach out for comment, who try to get things right. And there are some that remain. But overwhelmingly, the fake news that we see pumped out of this building on a day-to-day basis. It's honestly overwhelming to keep up with it all, and to constantly have to defend against these fake news and these attacks. And I will point out one fake news story over the weekend before I let you all go, from the New York Times that took about 1/3 of the president's daily calendar and his daily schedule and said that he's doing less than he did in his first term, or he might not be fit for the job. That is unequivocally false. And it's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this: Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history. He is taking meetings around the clock. Another one, Biden declared, quote, healthy and vigorous after his first presidential physical. I don't see headlines like that too often about this president. Again, same reporter, same outlet who wrote falsely over the weekend that President Trump is not fit for the job. I can assure you he absolutely is. You all see that with your own eyes on a daily basis, and the president's physician has now given you all 3 detailed reports on the state of the president's health. So with that, I will leave you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
So I brought that up because I was talking about the fake news, which supposedly is completely a hoax, as far as I've heard, that there was a second strike that Pete Hegseth ordered, which is why I sort of wanted to squeeze in that little update that the White House is now having their own official fake news portal, which is appropriate and necessary. And yeah, as being reported here, the notion as to what Mark Kelly is trying to do is seemingly part of what you call a color revolution. If you're not familiar with the term color revolution, it basically means it's a nonviolent revolution, a nonviolent overthrow of the government that's deemed to be fascist. That's what they mean when they talk about a color revolution. And in this context, maybe this is the blue revolution or whatever it is you want to call it, but these are individuals who are basically trying to get control of our military, sap control of our military, which is why 18 U.S.C. 2387, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, is appropriate, because they're trying to basically strip the commander-in-chief of his ability to command the military. And this is very, very dangerous stuff. This is very, very dangerous game that the left is playing here in their desperate effort to try and take control in ways that are unconstitutional. So, as Stephen Miller, not that Stephen Miller, reports, if you've been paying attention to this, what they're doing is going from don't follow legal orders to we will decide which orders are illegal when we're back in charge. So you better just not follow any of Trump's orders, or else you might be prosecuted. Another fun barrier broken down by the norms crowd. Yep. And here's Ruben Gallego doing precisely that. This is Senator Ruben Gallego. I don't care if he was in that stupid video. First and foremost, he was supposed to be, but that's really irrelevant. Any member of Congress who's saying the kind of nonsense that this guy is, they need to be prosecuted. I don't care. We need to go after these people already.
Into Senator Kelly.
Because they're addressing, and the difference from like freedom of speech is they're addressing their comments to the military. They are talking to the military. They're telling our military members what they should do and what they should not do. And they're willfully telling our military members that if you listen to Trump, we will come after you. If you follow orders from your superiors that we later can somehow twist into being unconstitutional, you'll go to jail.
What is your level of trust in the U.S. military justice system, if it were to get that far, to handle this?
I trust them actually a lot, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, these are professionals. They are also swearing to the Constitution of the United States. They know that there will be fallout and consequences if they are used in a hard way to basically railroad someone like Senator Kelly, because Donald Trump's going to be gone a couple of years. And if you're part of the military that is going after sitting senators, sitting members of Congress, and part of the weaponization of government, there will be consequences.
We will come after you. We're going to come after you. So basically, you better cut that head down, because otherwise we're going to come after you.
Without a doubt. So I think there's going to be a lot of officers that are going to be part of this, potential tribunal, if they want to call that. They're going to be looking over their shoulders because they know that Donald Trump will be gone and they will not have that protection. They're going to have to do the safest thing possible, which is follow the Constitution of the United States, and you'll be fine.
Follow the Constitution. Just follow the Constitution. That's so simple. Everyone understands what's written in the Constitution. Everyone understands whether any order is constitutional or not. Just follow the Constitution. It's so crystal clear. So easy. The objective is don't listen to any orders. That's what their clear objective is. Because if you do, we're going to come after you. If we don't like the actions that you're engaging in, we're going to try and come after you. Here's Mark Kelly basically admitting, hey, I can't tell you what's unconstitutional because I think everything he does is unconstitutional.
Sort of flimsy legality that was being offered during the briefings. Were these sort of strikes that are now in the news what you were making reference to when you posted that video telling members of the military that they needed to feel okay just obeying orders that they felt?
So were you talking about the strikes on the cartel boats in the Pacific the way Destiny thinks you were?
Based on who this president is and who the Secretary of Defense is, and specifically,
there's no Secretary of Defense. He's Secretary of War.
Things that the president has said in the past and things he was talking about doing in the future. Let me give you an example. 2016, he's talking about something on a debate stage that was clearly illegal. And he was reminded by Brett Baer from Fox News that that would be an illegal order. Military won't do that. You know what the president's response was to that? The military will not refuse my orders. Implying that even if they are illegal.
No, that's not what that's implying. He's saying he's not going to issue unconstitutional orders. He hasn't yet.
They will not refuse them. He's also talked about shooting protesters in the legs. Then he's talking about.
No, he asked the question whether they could. He asked the question, was told no, and then didn't issue the order. So this is another myth that he's trying to perpetuate. This is the new thing that they're trying to say they're trying to just manufacture orders that he's never given, as if he has, to say that he acts in a way that's unconstitutional.
Deploying more troops to American cities and using those cities as training grounds. Do you know what that means?
What are you talking about?
That means using the American people for the military to train on. So
no, it doesn't mean that at all. What the hell are you talking about? This guy, I don't know if he's on meth. I don't know what he's on. He's gonna be training. Yeah, that's exactly what that's what he means. You have like your retarded positions about where you basically take things that he says, twist in a retarded way, and then say, this is proof he's issuing unconstitutional things he never even did, and say this is proof that he's issuing unconstitutional orders. I mean, what kind of lunatic crackpot are you? The problem is that while you find people are listening to me and can actually hear and understand just how deranged they are, sadly, there are far too many people who listen to the likes of a Destiny, who actually think that makes sense. They've already been twisted into thinking that everything Trump says is designed to basically be empowering himself and harming as many people as he can. So, there are idiots who actually believe this nonsense that this jackass is saying.
We were looking forward to try to head something off at the pass.
You're trying to head off everything at the pass. That's the point. You're trying to head off everything. That's what you're trying to head off. You want to make sure his military does nothing.
That could have been really, really bad.
Yeah, you're really bad.
It wasn't about this specific thing.
So it wasn't about the boats. Oh, it wasn't about the boats. It's about everything. It's about everything. That's what he's just saying right here. It's not about the boats. It's about everything he does. That is 18 U.S.C. 2387.
Yeah.
Jennifer Shutt with Space Newsroom. The NDAA conference report is set to come out later this week, over the weekend.
All these comments are things that if I was his lawyer, I'd be like, shut the hell up. But I think they're not worried about being prosecuted. I don't think he's worried about being prosecuted.
Early next week. In addition to that, you all have not yet conferenced out the defense appropriations bill for the current fiscal year. Do you see either of those as options for you and other lawmakers concerned about the Defense Department, the actions in Venezuela, and other situations to address those legislatively in either the NDAA or defense approach?
Well, I think it could be if we could get bipartisan support to do something like that. Sure. That's sometimes challenging.
I hope so.
Because, remember,
I hope so.
My
I hope
Republican
you're right.
colleagues,
Useless
not all of
intellectual.
them, but most of them, are fearful of this president. They do not want to cross him. I mean, they see what just happened to me. I said something that he did not like.
No, you said something illegal. That's what you did.
And he said, I will be hanged,
No.
executed, prosecuted.
He said you need to be not in that order, doofus.
He doesn't even have the order right.
He didn't give that order.
Yeah.
Michael Schnell with MS Now. You mentioned.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't check the order. I didn't check the wording on it. But the point is, what you're doing is illegal. And what I said is, I don't think he should be hanged. I don't think that's appropriate punishment under our laws. But he definitely needs to be prosecuted. And he should be stripped of his commission. 100%. Joe, thanks for letting me be a disciple. It's my privilege. I was 12 when the Manson cult was a thing. I jumped at the chance to join. It's not at all a cult. Type of cult. You are the man. Thank you so much. Greetings to Lady Logic. Thank you, Clifford. Appreciate that. About Andrew's assertion last night that the boat was not shipwrecked. Disabled is not shipwrecked. A boat that is disabled still has some systems working. Disabled is still a threat. The boat was disabled. Oh, so that's why there was a second thing, not to kill the survivors, but to basically make sure that it couldn't fire back. All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Kelly is really close to Hillary. It's a Russiagate type of hit, and the Epstein thing varnished. I suspect that this is a tool of Hillary to screw up Trump. Possibly. I don't know how much influence she still has, but she may. I don't know. I question why it is that they still would regard her as someone who is worthwhile having influence, but the left listens to some stupid people, so who knows? Who knows? Could be. I got one more here, a clip of Mark Kelly.
Folks in the military need to understand, the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions, what the law says. And I'm concerned that if there were, in fact, as reported, survivors clinging to a damaged vessel, that could be, over a line. I hope it's not the case. I truly do.
You're going to claim it's the case no matter what.
Again, I am, not sure of all the facts yet. I don't want to prejudge.
You're prejudged everything.
You're
prejudging based on what he said in 2016, jackass.
The information. I think it's important for there to be an investigation. The inspectors general of DOD needs to investigate this. Unfortunately, an unqualified Secretary of Defense fired a bunch of them and got rid of a bunch of lawyers. Folks in the military need to understand, the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah. So there you go. Uzelian said I need a good laugh. He's doing his part for me. I'm gonna try to pull that up later. It's a 2-minute clip that he shared with me over in Rumble. So I'm gonna try and get to that a little bit later, perhaps when I finish this segment. But we're not quite there yet. Because this threat, trying to threaten the military, is something that the entire left is on board with now. They're joining as one to try and threaten our military. Here is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
One thing that should be clear to all of these Republican extremists and sycophants and the people who are either actively involved in corruption, violating the law, engaged in extrajudicial activity, is that the statute of limitations for any crimes being committed now 5 years. It will extend well beyond the end of the Trump administration. One thing that should...
I thought you said he's going to not allow any more elections. So I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. But the point is that they're dropping the threats. We're coming after you. We're going to be prosecuting you. Statute of limitations is 5 years. We're going to come after you. And that's why Donald Trump was sending this out on True Social. We got this here. These are laws that impact our nation. Read Title 18, Chapter 115, Section 2387. Whoever whoever with the intent to interfere, impair, influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the military and naval forces shall be fined in prison up to 10 years. Quoting Commander Kirk Leopold, U.S. Navy retired. This is right on point. Do what has to be done. Do what has to be done. That's what he's saying. Do what has to be done. And that's really what we need. We need 18 U.S.C. 2387 because these people are desperately trying to talk directly to our military. As Mario points out here, Trump dropped the legal nuke nobody saw coming. He quoted the rarely invoked 18 U.S.C. 2387, the law that makes it a felony up to 10 years for anyone with intent to interfere with, impair, or influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the U.S. military. Anyone inside the chain of command, admiral, general, civilian appointee, whoever is deliberately tanking morale, pushing political agendas, or sabotaging readiness is now on notice. The law has been on the books forever. No administration has ever threatened to actually use it against senior officials or DOD civilians. And this is not just my opinion. This is not just my opinion that this is trying to incite a revolution and trying to take control. This is also the opinion of Senator Eric Schmidt.
We'll point out, though, Harris, one of the crazy things that happened over the weekend, the Democrats, elected Democrats, not some online troll, elected Democrats have been saying it's okay to disobey orders. That's the first step. But what we saw happen this weekend through some of those same elected officials was to say basically to military men and women, look out, you might get prosecuted. This is not the language of we'll beat them in the next election or we'll win the argument.
No, we're gonna throw you in jail.
This is the language of a color revolution where you're calling on military men and women to disobey orders, and you put that on top of the firebombing of Tesla dealerships, the riots you see in this.
It's disobey them or we will throw you in prison. That's what they're doing to our military. That's how deeply they're trying to control our military. Disobey your commander in chief, or we'll prosecute you because we'll try to find a way that what you're doing is unconstitutional. This is arguably the most serious threat to our republic we've seen in a century since World War II. This is the most serious threat. This is the most serious threat because this is actually happening. They are trying to tell our military that if you follow your commander-in-chief, we will find a way, because we've seen how they basically manipulate laws. We see how they basically warp existing laws to try and find that this is illegal, that's illegal, and they manage to find these wacky judges who go along with it, saying that what Trump is doing is unconstitutional. You think it's not possible that they can actually try and find similarly wacky judges to throw members of our military in prison for following Trump's orders 5 years from now? This is what our military now has to deal with because of these clowns. This is genuinely weakening our country in ways that are wholly un-American. Because they are now saying, we will throw you in jail. We're going to throw you in jail. When we get back in power, we're throwing you in jail for following this guy. And we're deeming it unconstitutional. He's issuing completely lawful orders, but we're going to find ways to prosecute you. That's essentially what they're saying. This is horrifying.
Streets, the prosecution of a political opponent. The Democrats have completely lost the plot here. And the American people, I think, see that. But it's a very dangerous road to go down here to say you should be disobeying orders because we don't like Trump. We'll point out, though, here.
Very well said by Senator Schmidt. Very well said indeed. And everything he's saying there, I agree with 100%. This is very, very dangerous stuff. This has never happened before. This is a way of trying to control our military from the sidelines under the threat of we're going to put you in jail when we get back in power. That's what they're doing. That's what Jeffries is doing. That's what Mark Kelly is doing. That's what Gallego is doing. And they're all going to be, the entire Democratic Party is about to be doing this. This is the start of it. You will see the entire Democratic Party basically threatening our military soon. That's why these prosecutions have to happen swiftly. That's why this really has to happen swiftly. You can't be lollygagging on this. But what they're doing in order to try and make sure we don't get swift prosecutions, as we shift over into our next story, as we start shifting over into our next story, and I will in a moment, is they're trying to control who can engage in prosecution. And sadly, our GOP is allowing it. Our Senate GOP is allowing it. Kavel saying, "Evening, Joe. Tried to watch that debate the other day. What a spit show that was. Hope you're doing well after having to be intellectually stunted during that. Thank you. I appreciate. I know a lot of people were like, I can't watch this. This is just stupid." Another Dem shutdown coming in January. This time it's going to be about abortion. It was caught on a hot mic waiting for Jeffrey's news conference. Really? Interesting. I hope they do. We have to get rid of the filibuster. I hope they do. Maybe we'll get rid of the filibuster. You can't be playing around. But I have so little confidence in the Senate GOP right now. They're a joke. They're really a joke. Kavel, thank you for gifting 5 Good Lawgic memberships. 5 new members of the following. Who did you bring on in here? Let me just catch up real fast. Following 5 people brought into the following courtesy of Kavel. That would include 6-foot tree. When you call your name, when you hear your name call, please make sure you extend your gratitude to Kavel 54 for bringing you on into the greatest assembly of individuals who are seeking greater personal growth through community, unity, learning, and thinking. That does include you, 6-foot tree, as well as Jonathan X, John H 1353, Brad Pitt 4170. Brad Pitt is a regular here. Glad to see that he got awarded a gift membership. Truly deserving choice there that you made, Kavel. And Eric, not to dismiss any of the others who you brought in, but I've seen him around here a lot. And Eric with a K 63. Eric with a K. Welcome to the following, all of you fine people. Please make sure you remember that I am not at all the leader of the following. I'm just a host. These aren't uniformed regular soldiers of Venezuela. Are you saying that they're not entitled to the legal convention? I ain't 100%. Expecting retards to make sense is a futile endeavor. Kelly, ever a member of our military, needs to be lawyers. Apparently, that's his position. Everyone, you know the law. Our judges don't know the law, but you need to know the law. Cliff, all these Dems look like they just found out those weren't raisins in their cereal. Rat droppings give you that look me things. Could be. Charlie D'Angelo. Joe, if you're not following him on X, this guy is awesome. The memes and the music. He has so much friggin' talent, Charlie D'Angelo. He really does. Tremendous talent. The dude is just light years and based as hell. Long time no see. Question: could this whole sedition, aka Trism, be a tool Democrats are using to take everyone's eye off the ball? The release of the Epstein files could be. Definitely, I definitely think that might have been its genesis. But whatever its genesis, the damage that are resulting from it is really the key thing. In other words, if their motivation was to stop looking at the Epstein files or not, it was purely to try and engage in creating insubordination in our military. That's the effect remains the same, right? In that there's much less focus on the Epstein files and there's insubordination in our military. So, yeah, as far as whether that, I also don't look at them as a monolith, that all of them are motivated by the same things. The same way, you and I might have different motivations and come to the same conclusions about a lot of different topics, but that, and every person here has their own motivation. So for some of them, perhaps that was the motivation. It certainly would be surprised if it wasn't part of the motivation. But I definitely think that the idea of creating insubordination in our military is something that this was a plan. This was a plot to try and basically and to start ginning up louder and louder these threats to our military that one day we're going to be back in power and we're going to prosecute you for war crimes and for acting for violating the Constitution. And we're going to be coming after you very, very hard. And the objective in that sense is to get as many members of the military to disregard their orders. And that's why they need to be prosecuted. Are you willing to dissect yesterday's debate? I was thinking about offering that, but I think that people will run screaming. I think if I do that, I think people will be like, I can't listen to, I had to sit through it once. So many people are saying things like, tried to watch that debate the other day. There's just screaming from start to finish, cutting me off as soon as I start saying something. That it's like, I wouldn't mind doing it. I just don't think that there's a real interest in me doing it, but I certainly would. Maybe that'd be a good thing to do on locals. I just feel like it would take I can't do the whole thing. I mean, it's 2 hours I was there. I can't do the whole thing because to dissect it'll take me 3 times as long. But maybe to find maybe someone comes up with a 20-minute segment or something like that, or a half-hour segment for me to break down that's the key points that I should really break down, what was being said there. Perhaps that would make sense. So I mentioned, as we move on to our next story, I mentioned that the left is doing everything they can to try and stop Trump from being able to prosecute. And one way is that they are trying to have his U.S. attorneys, who he appoints, basically get screwed out of their assignments and stripped of their power. We saw what happened with Halligan. Today there was an order that came down, which is stopping Alina Habba from serving as a U.S. attorney. Trump picked Alina Habba to remain acting New Jersey U.S. attorney after judges rejected her post. I don't cower to pressure. That's what she said on July 24th. Unfortunately, she's been removed, though. She's no longer there. As the Gateway Pundit points out in their story here, appeals court disqualifies Alina Habba from serving as U.S. attorney for New Jersey. MAGA warrior Alina Habba has been barred from serving as U.S. attorney for New Jersey in an outrageous travesty of justice by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. This is the latest assault by the judiciary of Trump legal appointees and surely won't be the last. A federal appeals court on Monday found Alina Habba, President Donald Trump's former personal attorney, is serving unlawfully as U.S. attorney for New Jersey, dealing a legal blow to the Trump administration that could have far-reaching consequences on other appointments across the country. A panel of 3 appellate judges with Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a lower court's finding that the administration violated the law when it used a series of maneuvers to install Habba in the position after failing to win Senate support. I'm going to talk to you a lot about this Senate support, and this article does a good job of breaking down just what a complete and total failure our Senate GOP is, specifically Senator Chuck Grassley. One of the things I like about this article is that it's explaining to you how the process works and why there was a failure. It gives me an opportunity, at least, to go through this. You can understand why it is that we're dealing with this nonsense. And it's all because we have a sucky, weak GOP in the Senate and an ineffective, spineless GOP. And you have to question whether they're being purposefully spineless. On the government's delegation theory, Habba may avoid the gauntlet of presidential appointment and Senate confirmation and serve as the de facto U.S. attorney indefinitely. The unanimous 3-judge panel wrote, this view is so broad that it bypasses the constitutional appointment and Senate confirmation process entirely. And I want to say this. As someone who appreciates sound legal philosophy, I struggle to argue with the court's reasoning here. I understand this is a bit of a hot take for someone who's MAGA in the sense of, wanting Alina Habba there. Do I want her to stay in the position? Hell yeah, 100%. Is their attack on what Trump's putting in here and saying that he has the right to appoint her indefinitely, is that seen to be flouting what a direct mandate of the Constitution is, that you have to that you appoint and has to be confirmed by the Senate? Yeah, it is. I think that I think it's logically sound when they're removing her here. My point is, I think when they're removing her here, I think it makes sense. I haven't dissected the opinion in its entirety. And it could be that if I was looking at it, I would find other bases to say that they're wrong. So I'm not married to this position, but just at first blush, if you ask me which makes more sense, to say that he can just appoint someone indefinitely or that there's a limitation to how long someone can be appointed for, I would think that if you want to, if you just say President X appointed someone over here indefinitely, don't make it Trump. Don't make it Republican or Democrat. Just have President Johnson 20 years from now appoints someone indefinitely. I would say, would you not say to me, it seems as if you're bypassing the necessary step of confirmation, which the Constitution expressly demands that there has to be confirmation by the Senate. I think you struggle if you're displaying intellectual integrity, which I always try to display. I always try to stand fast to. It's hard to basically deny that, hey, you know what? You're supposed to be confirmed by the Senate. And you weren't. So I struggle to argue with the Third Circuit's reasoning here. Again, someone could show me something to show me why it is that, you know, there's a massive thing, there's a massive counter argument that I'm missing. And that's very possible. But just based on this argument alone, that you could do indefinitely, this sentence here, this view is so broad that it bypasses the constitutional appointment Senate confirmation process entirely. This, to me, is philosophically sound. That's a logical conclusion that the Third Circuit is coming to. The problem is not the judges here, the way it so often is or has been during the first year of Trump's administration. The problem is our Senate. That's the problem, as we're about to get into. The ruling by the appeals court marks a tremendous loss for America, as Habba has been a fearless warrior for election integrity, especially during last month's elections. She has been. This latest news regarding Habba also comes months after an Obama judge said she was not lawfully holding the office of the U.S. Attorney. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi promptly appealed the ruling. It also comes just 1 week after an appeals court ruled that Lindsay Halligan, the U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Virginia, was illegally appointed and dismissed cases against deranged former FBI Director James Comey and crooked New York Attorney General Letitia James. The feckless GOP Senate has only itself to blame for these debacles, and I think that the Gateway Pundit here is not even pounding this hard enough. This is 1,000% all the fault of our GOP Senate. It is 100% theirs. There's been ample time to confirm Habba and other MAGA patriots for full-time U.S. attorney positions, but so-called institutionalists like Senator Chuck Grassley are too busy trying to pacify Senate Democrats using their so-called blue slip custom as an excuse. What the hell is a blue slip? You might have heard that term being thrown around. You might have heard it come up a lot over the last several weeks, and you likely, many of you, I don't know, perhaps the majority of you know what a blue slip is, but many of you probably don't know what it is. So I want to walk you through exactly what this is so you can understand why it is that we're having these problems and why this is 100% on the Senate GOP. The custom effectively gives Democrat senators a veto over Trump appointments. What is blue slip? That gives these Democrat senators a veto over Trump appointments. So the normal process, if we don't have a blue slip, is this. This is the normal process. I'll just walk you through. The normal process is first you go to, when the president has an appointment, he goes to the Judiciary Committee and he says, this is the person I want to appoint to position X. So I want to make Alina Habba the U.S. attorney for the state of New Jersey. That makes her the top enforcing prosecutor for federal law in the state of New Jersey. You recommend them. The next thing that's supposed to happen is the Senate Judiciary Committee is supposed to have hearings to determine whether or not they want to recommend her to the Senate. And that's where you sometimes will see these viral clips of moments where someone like Pam Bondi is being interviewed by various persons from the Senate. We saw like Pam Bondi versus Schiff or other persons in the in the Senate who are sitting on the Judiciary Committee that they are grilling this candidate for the position. They technically don't have to go through that process of being interviewed, but that is the normal, that is customary procedure. That's the way it's supposed to go. But what the Senate has employed of late is, instead to abdicate that whole process, the Judiciary Committee, they tend to have gone with the blue slip method. What is the blue slip? The blue slip is a blue form that gets sent to the senator from a particular state. And that senator, so that if he says, I want to appoint Alina Habba to the state of New Jersey, so they send this form to Senator Booker. And who's my other senator now? I forget this guy's name. I don't even know. Anyway, I don't care. He's still nobody. And basically says, do you agree with this appointment or not? Do you like this appointment or not? Now, you ask me, Cory Booker, whoever it is that Trump is going to appoint, you know he's going to say, no, I do not. I don't agree with it. Now, the way the blue slip has operated traditionally is that irrespective of party or anything like that, when the blue slip was sent out, unless there was a crazy appointment, some really bizarre type of individual being chosen for a particular position, but basically in almost every circumstance, the senators just say, yeah, do it. That's fine. I approve. They can either not return the slip, they can approve, or they can reject. When they approve, if two of them approve, then they just bypass Senate Judiciary Committee and then they go for a vote. And the Senate Judiciary says, all right, we support this. We're okay with this. And we're urging you to vote to confirm her. That's the process. But their recommendation carries a great deal of weight. Now, you can technically be approved even if the Judiciary Committee rejects you. But that's unusual. I think it's happened 4 times in American history ever. So it's unusual. What happens when you get rejected by what the blue slip says, no, I don't want you. I don't want this person being appointed. Well, what they've done is they say, we're not even going to bring it to the Judiciary Committee. There's no hearing. So that's what Chuck Grassley has done. He's given Cory Booker veto power over who gets designated as to being our U.S. attorney. Why? I don't know. Because it's customary, or whatever it is. But there's this weakness in our Senate GOP that they recognize. You have to recognize the time and place in which we're living. Perhaps when 20 years ago or 75 years ago, when Grassley began his senatorial career, that type of politics made sense because there was certain etiquette and politeness and mutual respect, sufficient mutual respect that these policies of using the blue slip would not be abused. And perhaps things were more expeditious using the blue slip back in those days of yore, when Chuck Grassley's when Chuck Grassley didn't need to be dyeing his roots. But we are not living in those times now. We are living in an age right now where whatever it is that Trump recommends, they're going to say no to. You know this is the case. You know this is reality. Everyone knows this. So you know that whoever he throws out there is going to be rejected. Why the hell are you giving them sufficient authority jurisdiction to say, I'm going to veto whoever it is that Trump suggests? Why? So there's a couple of reasons you might do this. A, you're an idiot. B, you're lazy. Or C, you're complicit. That's it. I don't think Chuck Grassley's an idiot. Now, lazy could be weak. I mean, lazy could be like, I don't want to have that fight. But if you're sufficiently aware, if you have enough of your meds intake, that you have the cognitive ability and function to recognize that Cory Booker will reject any person that Trump suggests for U.S. attorney. Why the hell are you giving Cory Booker authority to decide who's going to be the U.S. attorney for New Jersey? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Unless You don't like Alina Habba. Unless you don't like Trump. I mean, why would you be doing this? Why would anyone say that this is a logical step to who would do you think that there's a rational decision? Do you think he had to sit there and think? Alina Habba. Do I want Alina Habba? I mean, how insane is this? And Chuck Grassley is the head of the Judiciary Committee. That's why it's on him. He's the head of the Judiciary Committee. He's the one who's approving this blue slip method. It's completely 100% on him, which is not in the Constitution. There's nothing in there which mandates that this is how you do this process, that this should be any part of the process at all. You should even be conferring with them is not part of the process at all. None of this is anywhere there. But Senator Chuck Grassley decides, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to basically pretend that, well, my hands are tied. What can I do? Well, there's a blue slip there which says, no, there's a blue slip. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? And I see this and I think to myself, I'm hoping that these jackasses are going to get rid of the filibuster. Senator Chuck Grassley, who's such a traditionalist, such an institutionalist, that he's going to get rid of the filibuster. Guy can't even get rid of blue slips. Getting rid of the filibuster is a lot harder than getting rid of blue slips. The treachery is not coming from the left. I mean, the treachery is coming from the left in that they're trying to subvert our military, obviously. But in this particular instance, this is treachery that's coming from the neocons. This is treachery that's coming from the institutionalists. This is treachery from people who are saying, oh, we got to work with Queen's rules as to like what the rules of conduct dictate. And using those rules to either hide behind the fact that they're actually furthering an agenda that they agree with, i.e., keeping Alina Habba out, i.e., Chuck Grassley really doesn't want Alina Habba there. And this way she could say, well, what can I do? There's the blue slip. We got a blue slip. We got a blue slip rejection from Cory Booker. What can I do? So it's either masking that that's what he genuinely wants, or it's revealing the fact that he is too lazy, too weak, or too incompetent to actually be head of the Judiciary Committee. But this is a shameful, shameful thing. And we're seeing one based U.S. attorney after another losing their jobs because these courts are basically saying you can't just not go through the Senate confirmation process. And to be fair, under the Constitution, which is what the judges are supposed to be doing, it seems like the court's probably right on that. So then you come to like, well, why is the Senate not confirming? Oh, because there's a blue slip. Well, why listen to blue slip? Because Chuck Grassley says, well, I don't know, I'm going to listen to there's a blue slip. There's a blue slip here. What can I do? There's a blue slip rejection. So it's completely on a GOP in our Senate, which does not care to actually further Trump's agenda. That's what we are seeing here. They do not care to further Trump's agenda. They don't care about actually helping things get done properly. And Senator Chuck Grassley should be harassed by phone call day and night for respecting the blue slip. When it's just an automatic veto. You know it's an automatic veto. It's coming from freaking Cory Booker. The guy goes trans screaming like a girly man every single time he sees Trump do anything. What's going on here? This is not the democracy I stand up for. I mean, this is the guy you're giving veto power to. That's the guy you're giving veto power to. What are you a joke? Are you serious? How can anyone take you seriously? And that's what leads me to think, I think he really doesn't want Alina Habba to stay there. And the only reason I can think of that is either Alina Habba ran his dog over, or he really doesn't want Trump's agenda furthered. But this way he can hide behind the fact that it's like, it's not me, it's the Senate rules. And that's what happens on the Senate rules. He has veto power. Ridiculousness. Sickening. President Trump previously said he would file a lawsuit to prevent Senator Chuck Grassley from blocking Habba's confirmation U.S. Attorney in New Jersey with the unconstitutional blue slip process, and has lashed out against the practice in general. Quote, I have a constitutional right to appoint judges and U.S. attorneys. He does, but that right has been completely taken away from me in states that have just one Democrat, United States Senator, Trump wrote in Truth Social. He's 100% right. is because an old and outdated custom known as the blue slip that Senator Chuck Grassley of the great state of Iowa refuses to overturn, even though the Democrats, including crooked Joe Biden, have done so on numerous occasions. They've done it. You're not even doing something new. You're just tit for tatting. He's not even willing to tit for tat. Therefore, the only candidates that I can get confirmed for these most important positions are, believe it or not, Democrats. Chuck Grassley should allow strong Republican candidates to ascend to these vital and powerful roles and tell the Democrats, as they often tell us, to go to hell. But he won't. He won't. So yeah, you should be harassing his phone lines. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, Lizzie. Just because I'm extremely thankful for you. That's very, very kind of you. Very, very generous. I really appreciate it. Thank you so very, very much. Cory Booker's new wife is supposedly Jewish. No one cares. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who Kamala Harris. I don't care. Who cares? Oh my gosh. I don't care if she's Jewish, Indian. I don't care what the hell she is. I don't care if she's a trans woman. I don't care. Matt Reese says, I would love to see military members flood the phone lines to these senators. They should ask about the legality of every little order. That'd be funny. That'd be really funny. That would be really, really funny. Joe, don't you find it interesting that the same Mamdani wants to institute international law in New York City? Would that make New York City no longer part of the USA? I don't know what the hell he wants. Decimal Threat saying, commendable effort trying to bring logic to a screech fest last night. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Mama Hutch saying, just a thank you. I usually listen the next morning and you have perfect energy for my early chores. Ah, that's amazing. Especially because I'm trying to put people to sleep. So I don't know. That's almost miraculous. Uzelian sent me this thing that he wants me to watch cheer me up. And frankly, at this moment, I could probably use a little cheering. So even though this wasn't planned, this is what he shared with me. I have not vetted this yet, which is a foolish move on my part. But I'm trusting you, Uzelian. I'm trusting you. Also, I want to welcome those. I meant to mention this, so I want to welcome you, those of you from Robert Gouvea's stream who raided over here. God bless you, Robert. Thank you for sending them over. I see that happen in Rumble. I don't see that in YouTube. I don't understand why that would be. I'm sure he set it up, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyhow, let's check out this video.
Last year, 2 million taco benders have invaded our glorious land, where citizenship must be earned.
Before ICE, we lacked a strong border. All manners of deviants, degenerates, and puppets cross the border with impunity. I'm Ricky, and I'm doing my part with my pal Pikachu. I'm doing my part.
YouTube, just want to be clear. These are puppets. They're puppets. They're just puppets. I know you get confused. It's just puppets.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I don't even know what I'm watching now.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my pet too. I love doing my part.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is wrong. That is wrong. Throwing out the bacon in the mosque.
We are all doing our part.
Before I used to clean laundry, now I take out the trash. I also got to deport my former employer. I deport the gangbangers so I can keep these bitches for myself.
What the heck is this? I don't even. Okay, this really pushed. This pushed too far. It pushed too far. Oh God. All right. At a certain point, we gotta get back to the show. But thank you. Thank you. But that little comedy break is a nice little segue to our next portion of the show. Our next portion of the show, which is Pete Hegseth trolling. See how we've been flowing? The flow has been strong. The flow is strong tonight. Very, very strong. Oh, it's playing Starship Troopers. That's what it is. Thank you. All right. Pete Hegseth trolling the left after their heads were exploding like puppets over the downing of a narco boat. For your Christmas wish list, Franklin targets narco terrorists. That's what our Secretary of War put out there for your Christmas wish list. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is the comments on this. Be honest, what's your biggest red flag? Franklin targets narco terrorists. Even in World War II, we gave people a jury their peers before attacking. Germany stood trial in Nuremberg before we declared war. Otherwise, it would have been a war crime. This is Claire. Claire Foster, PhD. If you're not yet following Claire Foster, PhD, I highly recommend that you do. Even in World War II, we gave people a jury of their peers before attacking. Germany stood trial in Nuremberg before we declared war. Otherwise, it would have been a war crime. That's Claire Foster right there. Classic Claire. If you don't realize it, Claire Foster is a parody account. It is. The notion that we had Nuremberg trials before we declared war is pretty funny. Anti-extremist IQ 169, Newsom 2028. So good. Claire is so good. And everyone and gets so many people to fall for it. See, they all fall for it. They all fall for it. You should give Claire a follow. Claire is awesome. Dun, 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 dun. This is great. This is so good. He should have never been confirmed as Secretary of Defense. Trump may have looked the other way, but our servicemen won't. You're the most unqualified, most disgraceful Secretary of Defense in history. He's not a Secretary of War. Get it right. You're going to prison someday. You literally just disqualified yourself and maybe self-indict yourself as a war criminal. What? What? What are you talking about? What? What? This really isn't funny, TJ Cooney. This was such a great troll. And it led to so many more things. The new Franklin series is phenomenal. Franklin defends the pot in the library. Oh my God. Franklin defends the library. Franklin explains what Fauci deserves. Franklin questions Ketanji Brown's credentials. It's a great series. It's a really great series. I highly recommend for all your Christmas needs. For all your Christmas needs. So there you go. There you go. Anyhow, moving along. Moving right along here. Did I have more on Franklin? Covered. Oh, there was one more here. Franklin is kind of tired. Sleep won't fix. What? What? That's dark. That's very, very dark. The progressive left Soviet Democrats are going nuts about this. It's like Pete Hegseth kicked in the red ant mound. They're now running around trying to bite everyone. Lethal strikes on the drug cartel boats is no different than strikes ordered in the past against Al Qaeda, ISIS, or any other terrorist group who attacked and killed terrorist enablers, finance chiefs, and other armed terrorist members since before the war on terror. The Marxist Democrats, led by Captain Mark Kelly, are now working to create hate, chaos, and discontent in the ranks of the military. This cannot stand. Yep, they are. They are. Thousands. I actually asked Grok this question. I don't think I saved it here though. So I'm gonna ask Grok again. Let me ask Grok again. How many people did I get you to talk? Grok, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. How many people did Obama kill with drone strikes?
It's tough to pin down an exact number since estimates vary based on sources. But during Obama's presidency, U.S. drone strikes killed between about 2,800 and 4,000 people total, including combatants and civilians. The official U.S. tally for civilian deaths was 64 to 116 in places like Pakistan, Yemen, and Africa. But independent groups like the Bureau of Investigative Journalism put civilian casualties much higher up, to 800 or more.
800 or more civilians who were killed by Obama in drone strikes. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's right. Estimates from groups like the Bureau of Investigative Journalism suggest up to 800 or more civilian deaths from U.S. drone strikes during Obama's 2 terms, mostly in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. The numbers are disputed, though. The U.S. government reported way fewer.
How many people on either side of the aisle, left or right, ever called any of those drone strikes a war crime? People who have political power.
It's pretty rare for sitting politicians with real power to straight up label Obama's drone strikes as war crimes. Most criticism was about legality, transparency, or overreach, not full-on crimes. But a few notable ones did go there or close. On the right, Rand Paul, GOP senator, blasted the program hard, saying it treated suspects worse than Nazi war criminals and pushed for oversight hearings. Ron Paul, former GOP rep, called it unconstitutional murder. On the left, fewer, but Alan Grayson, D-Rep, grilled the admin on civilian deaths and pushed bills to rein it in, while some like Barbara Lee, D-Rep, and civil liberties Dems like Ron Wyden called for inquiries into potential illegality. Bernie Sanders, then independent, now D, demanded transparency on strikes. Overall, maybe a half dozen or so in Congress over 8 years, mostly libertarians or progressives.
All right. Like I said, this is not new. This is the president exercising his power. This is, and the Secretary of War is just thinks it's funny how much they're screaming about it. He thinks it's funny, and properly so. It is. It is pretty funny how freaked out they're getting about it. It would be funnier if they weren't threatening that there'll be actual repercussions, which bizarrely they are. I shouldn't say bizarrely, but that is what's been happening. That's what's been happening. These threats have been happening behind closed doors in politics for ages. The difference now is Democrats are going public out of desperation. This is true. And it's far more dangerous because of that. Because the reason they're going public is because they're trying to threaten our military. They're trying to co-opt the military from listening to Trump. That's what they want. That's what they want. We should really be breaking down, though. It's important for us to break down as we move on to our fourth and final story. And this one's going to take a minute because there's just so much going on in the state of Minnesota, and the issues that are swirling around Tim Walz now are growing louder and stronger. Now, I don't know if we can get a U.S. attorney out there in Minnesota, because Klobuchar is going to send in a blue slip saying no. Is there a U.S. attorney in Minnesota who can go after Tim Walz? Is there a U.S. attorney? I don't know. But Minnesota has been looted of billions of dollars through fraud through the Department of Human Services, their version of DHS, not the DHS you're familiar with, being Department of Homeland Security, but the Department of Human Services, which is a state agency in the state of Minnesota, has been so rife with fraud in such extreme levels as to be mind-boggling. Last week, I did a story breaking down how a leftist judge had overturned a unanimous conviction of a Somalian defendant who was convicted for engaging in fraud. And there's been a lot of fraud which has been slowly but steadily been exposed coming out of Minnesota in ways that would shock the conscience if we weren't so numb to these astronomical numbers. Minnesota got looted for billions while Walz, Omar, and Ellison protected the Somalia fraud machine for votes. 250 million fake meals, Lambos and Dubai palaces, 400 million autism scam, 300 million housing fraud, cash suitcases in Somalia and Al-Shabaab. Omar took their dirty money and praised their scams. Ellison slow-walked every probe. Walz signed the waivers and created racism instead of doing his damn job. Trump killed TPS for the fraudsters. Good. Now arrest the politicians who enabled it. Wholly agree with that. We need to start. The teeth need to come out. It's time.
So there's this basically huge fraud scheme that's unraveling in Minnesota. So it turns out that Minnesota has this program called the Housing Stabilization Services Program. And of course, Minnesota is home to this guy, Tim Walz, which of course puts the whole story on Donald Trump's radar. So now we have this breaking news.
The hero was Minnesota under Governor Walz as a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating effective immediately the TPS for Somalians, Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing people of the great state. Billions of dollars are missing.
That Trump is terminating the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. So the backstory here is that Minnesota went on a mission to create their own huge welfare system, and they did. And they basically kept expanding their own state level House and Human Services Department. And for a state, honestly, it's pretty big. It grew from $15 billion in 2022 to $23 billion in this next fiscal year. And basically 42% of all new spending goes to this welfare system that they're setting up.
Wait, what percent? What percent?
And basically 42% of all new spending goes to this welfare
Wow.
system that they're setting up.
Wow.
And most of it
42%. 42% of all new spending. That's where we're sending it.
goes to this housing stabilization service.
This is what Walz wanted to do to the country. He wanted to do this to the country. My God, thank God Trump won.
This program, which became this whole snowball of fraud, which got even more attention because it turns out a lot of the money ended up in the hands of Al-Shabaab, which is a group that we are currently fighting against in Somalia.
So we're funding this terrorist group, Al-Shabaab. Great. We're allowing American taxpayers to be defrauded so that the money can be sent to this evil entity in Somalia. Great. That's just wonderful.
And the thing with this HSS program is that they designed it in Minnesota as an honor system, which
I apologize that I missed this from you, Kim, earlier. The color revolution is Kelly Green. It is. Wait, is it really? Why? Why Kelly Green? I apologize for that, Kimmy. Why Kelly Green? Is there any way to recall my senator? No. Not in this state. Not in this state. The reason I missed this is because I got so outraged over this. That's why it was right above yours. I apologize, Kimmy.
I gather means that you could basically go and spend the money first and then get reimbursed by the state. And the logic here was that if you needed housing, then you should basically be able to go and just pay for it without getting approval of anything and then charge it back. Turns out that was catastrophic. So you have like some defendants, these people that called themselves brilliant minds, they defrauded the government of about $2.3 million. You have this other one called Liberty Plus Housing Consulting, where the owner was driving a Mercedes and telling his employees to bill as much as they could. Looks like they got about $1.2 million in fraudulent Medicaid funds. So then the state did this emergency executive order where they're terminating the program. But that just kicked off this whole other investigation, which honestly was crazy because then it gets into autism, where basically people start looking into the
and autism is where the real money was. That's where the real money was.
Number of autism service providers in the state, and it turns out that they've increased by 700% over the past 5 years.
The entire state of Minnesota became autistic. Oh, you giving money for autism? Well, all our kids are autistic. Wow, increasing 700% as soon as you give money. Who would have expected something like that?
Going from 41 providers to 328, a 3,000% increase in billing to $192 million.
From 6 million to 192 million. Unbelievable.
So basically,
by the way, New York, this is all coming to you with like Mamdani's trans thing. This is all coming your way. It's all coming your way.
It seems like Minnesota was doing so much in terms of setting up these fraudulent autism centers that it was actually driving the autism statistics for the nation higher. And then it turns out that Al-Shabaab is getting a bunch of taxpayer money.
Kelly Green for Senator Kelly. I see. I got it. I should have picked up on that.
Then it gets into people investigating this organization called Feeding Our Future that was getting more taxpayer money. And one of the things that set that investigation off is that this person who was also defrauding the autism program got $14 million and bought real estate in Kenya with this money.
Oh my God. So much fraud. So it's like, yeah, sure. I'm supposed to be spending it on autistic kids, but I don't really have any autistic kids here. So, it's pretty much it's the same line because, if you're going to, a lot of, people in Kenya, they must have some autism there. There must be some autism.
But then it starts to tie into these high profile Minnesota politicians like the mayor. So it turns out that the mayor's aide actually pleads guilty in a $250 million scheme to defraud taxpayers. And it looked like maybe some of the money was making it to the mayor. So now the mayor is going to have to testify in court. And then Ilhan Omar gets involved because her deputy district director was at the party for one of the ringleaders of this fraud ring, and they were making donations to Ilhan Omar. And one of her staffers even had to plead guilty to fraud. And then there's this guy who was a pretty serious candidate for mayor. I think he's a state senator. And basically, he set up a system where it was really easy for the money from this huge fraud scheme to come into his campaigns. And then when they start to actually prosecute the fraudsters, they do all sorts of wild stuff like give one juror $120,000 in cash in a bag to try to get them to not convict them.
Wow.
And one of the things that's kind of happening behind the scenes is this concept called Hawala, which I had never heard of before. But basically, it's this sort of informal banking network that is really active in basically the African communities.
I've heard of Hawala before. I'm pretty sure it's Arabic. I don't think it's African. I'm pretty sure it's a Muslim thing. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Maybe some of you know better. You can get the Hawala out of here. So much fraud in this state. Any of you from Minnesota here? It's your money. It's your tax money.
And this one detective with the Seattle police said that even one of these banking networks was doing $20 million of transactions per year. And Al-Shabaab controls a bunch of the territory where the money's going. So they basically just like take fees and extort along the way. And then you get this like Democrat identity politics stuff starting to come in because the Minneapolis City Council starts to investigate it. And then basically these people like her start saying that this is the only reason that they're looking into this. And this puts...
It's too true, Eclectic Deb. A lot of it does. Not all of it does, but a lot of it does. Not all of it does, but a lot of it gets Fed reimbursement. Not all of it, but a lot.
Tim Walz in a pickle because Tim Walz is like king of identity politics. And it really just starts to kind of bring into question this idea of immigration with a particular sort of tribal group. Because, you know, you see these reports where they talk about community of refugees, they're from a certain place. And then Ilhan Omar, this lady, she basically is giving this speech and she's talking about some foreign policy incident between, I think, Ethiopia and Somalia. And somebody asked her, okay, cool. So what is the US government going to do about it? And her response is, the US government's going to do what we ask it to do. This country is one where your daughter sits in Congress. And while I'm in Congress, no one will take Somalia's seat. So basically, it kind of starts bringing into question this idea of like, all right, so then you're in the US Congress, but are you representing not US interests? And I personally am not settled on that issue. I think it's, you know, complicated and
I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think it's that complicated at all.
And subtle. But I do think this is why when Donald Trump closed USAID, even though the old guard didn't like that, a lot of Americans supported it because it turned out that we see that this whole nonprofit government funding ecosystem turned out to be a gold mine for these nonprofits and for the people at the top of them.
Yep.
And I just think that this is an example of the kind of thing that makes a lot of voters suspicious of the way that Democrats do things. Big government, lots of money into these welfare programs, lots of opportunities for fraud. I mean, the honor system. And then throw in a healthy dose of it all being about identity politics. And I just think a lot of people are out. They don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good overview of the different types of fraud that are going on. But I've got more for you on that. Much more for you. So one of the things he referenced there was $14 million. As Wall Street Apes reports, a woman from Somalia recruited other Somalians in Minnesota to operate a fraud scheme, stealing $14 million from American taxpayers. They were using the stolen money to buy property in Kenya and other luxury items. Asha Farhan Hassan got her Somali neighbors in Minneapolis to sign their kids up for autism treatments when they didn't even have autism. She then filed Medicare claims that said the kids were receiving treatments, and she gave kickbacks to the families up to $1,500 a month each. She ended up filing like $14 million in fake claims. She also did another $500,000 in fake food bank claims on a food program. She went nuts with the money, including buying herself real estate in Kenya.
That gave a Minneapolis woman enough. Did you hear about the $14 million Medicare scheme that gave a Minneapolis woman enough money to go and buy herself some property in Kenya with taxpayer dollars? Here's what Asa Farhan Hassan did. She got her Somali neighbors in Minneapolis to sign their kid ups for autism treatments when they didn't even have autism. She then filed Medicare claims that said the kids were receiving treatments, and she gave kickbacks to the families up to $1,500 a month each. She ended up filing like $14 million in fake claims, and she also did another $500,000 in fake food bank claims on a food program. She went nuts with the money, including buying herself real estate in Kenya. Don't you just love paying taxes? Don't you just love it?
And we had this also. Will Kane exposing the Somali community, now over $76,000 in Minnesota, where more than 40% of households in Somalia rely on remittances from abroad. That's right. 40% of households in Somalia are getting money from us. 40% of Somalia! An estimated $1.7 billion.
Just how many Somalians make up that fabric of our nation? In Minnesota, it's just over 76,000, 5,000 of which currently refugees, and 430 have protected status. Since then, since 1993, there have been 26,000 refugees. But there's also a lot of money being sent to Somalia from abroad. 40% of households there get money transfers. It totals $1.7 billion by the Somali diaspora. Well, that was in 2023. It's also worth pointing out that's more than the budget of Somalia's government.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's more than Somalia. Oh my God. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
In 2023. Where's it coming from? Well, here's an example. The federal child nutrition program, Feeding Our Future, very much in America. The sponsored organization were primarily owned and operated by members of the Somali community. It claimed to be serving thousands of meals a day, 7 days a week to underprivileged children. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The fraud ring used fake meal counts, doctored attendance records, and fabricated invoices, all while raking in quite a bit of money from the government. Just this week, a 36-year-old man became the 78th person charged in the scheme. According to prosecutors, he claimed to serve 6,000 meals a day, 7 days a week at one of the meal sites, which is more than double the number of people who live in the town. In 2019, Feeding Our Future received $3.4 million in federal funding. By 2021, that number was $200 million. In reality, that money was being used to fund lavish lifestyles in the U.S. and elsewhere. And many other schemes spawned from this one. News Nation reports to date, 86 people have been indicted. Of those indicted, federal authorities say 79 of them are Somali descent. We told you about Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services. It was originally created to help seniors, addicts, and others find housing. Program criteria was loose, leading to fraud and costs exploding. 6 people accused of defrauding HSS are members of the Somali community. We also told you about the autism scam, where a woman in the Somali community was one of the many accused of recruiting kids for autism therapy.
This is astonishing. This is astonishing. This is all happening under Tim Walz's nose. This is the guy who wanted to be a heartbeat away from the Oval Office.
Even if they didn't have autism. As a result, Medicaid claims also surged. Bottom line, we know this fraud is happening, but what's worse is when good prosecutors try to do something about it, and a judge lets the convicts off the hook, like in Hennepin County. where a judge tossed out a jury guilty verdict in a $7.2 million home health care fraud case.
Covered this last week.
In August, Abtifa Yusuf and his wife, Lul Ahmed, were found guilty by a jury of stealing $7.2 million in taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistance scam. According to the Minnesota Attorney General's office, they used stolen funds for, you guessed it, a lavish lifestyle. $1 million into a personal account, $387,000 in cash, $22,000 at a first.
The judge overturned a unanimous jury conviction, saying you can't prove that they knew. You can't prove that he knew. Well, he took $1 million into his account, but that still wasn't enough proof. That's enough proof to overturn a jury conviction and say there's absolutely no proof that he knew. No proof. Absolutely no proof. Lunatic judge.
Furniture store, $42,000 at luxury car dealers, and $80,000 at high-end clothing stores. But despite all of that, and a quick jury verdict, the judge tossed it out, writing, while the court is troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be perpetrated at promise, the state's evidence did not exclude other reasonable, rational inferences that are inconsistent with Mr. Yusuf's guilt. It's all incredible, seemingly random.
Yep. Yep. Pretty sad. Pretty sad indeed. What does Tim Walz have to say about this? What do you have to say for yourself, Tim Walz? He has his thoughts on this. Let's hear from Tim Walz.
Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
No.
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk the.
Who did you put in jail?
Theoretically,
you're the judge that you put in there. You appointed her. Overturn a conviction. You don't put people in jail. You make sure they don't serve any time.
We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts
not
criminals.
For long.
Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can.
No,
but
they're
to
not.
demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
Dozens of people.
Demonize an entire community. 79 out of 86 are from Somalia. Somalia got $1.7 billion from money sent abroad, more money than their entire government runs on. And you're saying that this is improperly, Tim Walz says this is improperly demonizing a community. All right. All right. Takes a lot of people to commit that much fraud. Takes a lot of people. Much more than 79. You need to have a lot of people willingly being complicit in helping them perpetuate the fraud. But it's lazy. It's lazy. So maybe it is lazy, or maybe there are other reasons why Tim Walz is face guarding. Sounds like money is coming back to him.
Now to what's being called devastating news. That's the reaction just in to crimes a former Minneapolis chamber leader is accused of.
Jonathan Weinhagen is facing federal fraud charges tonight.
Callan Gray has been digging into the accusations. She's live in Minneapolis right now with what she's found.
Tonight, there are new calls for accountability from those personally affected by the crimes he's accused of. One grandfather of a shooting victim calling it unbelievable.
The indictment says from December 2019 through June 2024, former Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce president and CEO Jonathan Weinhagen embezzled, quote, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the chamber and its business members. It says he entered into sham contracts with a fake consulting company he created and used an alias, James Sullivan, and at one point opened a line of credit in the Chamber of Commerce's name, used it for personal expenses, and diverted donations from chamber business members to repay the money. But for some in Minneapolis, the most upsetting charge is for mail fraud. It says the Chamber of Commerce gave $30,000 to Crime Stoppers to fund rewards for information leading to an arrest in 3 shootings in May 2021 that killed 2 children and severely injured a third. A year later, it says Weinhagen requested Crime Stoppers return the money, and when he got the check, he, quote, stole the money and used it to pay for his personal expenses.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So people donate money to Crime Stoppers, and he takes it. He takes their money. When the money's not used, he's like, oh, give it to me.
This is devastating news.
KG Wilson's 6-year-old granddaughter, Anaya Allen, was one of the children killed in May 2021.
For me to hear this today, it crushed my heart. It crushed my heart, and it angered me.
The reward
my personal opinion, I'm not saying this is a fact. I want to be 100% clear about that, okay? So I'm not saying this is a fact. My personal opinion is that there are kickbacks that are coming up to Tim Walz. I think that in the form of campaign contributions, I think that Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, I think all of these idiots are corrupt. That's my personal opinion.
Says could be critical in encouraging someone to come forward.
It's just unreal that we have human beings.
Because how could you be that stupid? How could you be that stupid? Or unless you're being complicit? You know, like how does that happen? How does that happen that, you know, that billions of dollars go missing? And you see that one program after another is rife with fraud. And hell, even your judges are letting people off, overturning convictions. To me, I don't know. I come to the conclusion that there's money that's going back to the big guy.
That are capable of being that heartless, that greedy to say, I don't care about these children who were shot and killed. I don't care about their families. I don't care about the communities who were hurt behind this. I'm going to take this money.
Wilson worried this could discourage people from donating to rewards in the future.
Why would you take from that?
He's right.
So the accountability to me is for him to turn that money back in and deal with the consequences in a courtroom for doing something like this.
I feel for that guy. You know, his cute little granddaughter there is killed, and like she's basically used as a pawn to help people steal.
A Crime Stoppers board member tells me tonight it's not unusual for donated funds to be returned if it's requested. The organization did not have a comment on the investigation, but says it is cooperating. Meanwhile, the Chamber of Commerce tells us it is cooperating with the Department of Justice and says over the last 16 months, it's been working diligently to make process and governance upgrades to better help the rebuild and strengthen the organization.
Yeah.
Kevin, Lindsay?
All right, no doubt, very disappointing news. Callan, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least prosecutions are happening. We'll see if judges let them stand, if they get convictions. And finally, I got here. We need a lot of investigations. We need a lot more investigators. And just because I like Scott Jennings and him putting a good bow on things, even though there's a little bit here that's repetitive, what we just heard.
We're going to start in Minnesota, where a scandal is engulfing Democratic Governor Tim Walz. And we have to start with acknowledging the dogged reporting of Christopher Rufo on this. He broke the story, and he's forcing the mainstream media to follow it. The situation involves fraud across multiple sectors of the Minnesota state government, with taxpayer money winding up in some truly horrendous hands. It begins with the state's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services, or HSS, which allows for Medicaid funding to be used for housing. Now, when it started in 2020, the cost of this was $2.1 million. Next year, it was $21 million. Next year, $42, then $74, and finally, a $61 million program in the first half of 2025 alone. The program was shut down on August 1st of this year due to at least 77 payments having credible allegations of fraud. After that happened on September the 18th, 6 Somalians in Minneapolis were indicted over this HSS fraud. Federal charges were brought by the U.S. attorney there. This was just the first round of his indictments.
So at least they have a U.S. attorney. That's good.
Now, the crimes here are severe. It wasn't just typical Medicare or Medicaid fraud. In these instances, whole entire companies were being fabricated in order to take payments and steal funds. The same day that these fraudsters were indicted, another person from the Somalian community there pleaded guilty in a case called the Feeding Our Families case. Feeding Our Families was a nonprofit primarily run by people in the Somali community in Minneapolis. They embezzled $250 million of relief hunger funds. This was one of the largest of the COVID-era fraud schemes. Just 6 days after this round of indictments went down, another one was served, this time for a woman named Asha Farhan Hassan, also from Minneapolis. She was involved in a $14 million fraud against the state. Now, here's what she would do: approach families in the community and have their children registered into autism therapy services, regardless if they had autism or not. Parents who took part in that scheme were given monthly kickbacks of somewhere between $300 and $1,500. Between 2018 and 2023, autism claims to HSS in Minnesota went from $3 million to start to a whopping $400 million. Providers went from 41 providers to 328 providers in the same period. Many of these were new centers for autism treatment. So there's all this fraud to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, all sorts of indictments. And you're probably asking yourself, where did all this money go? If only it were as simple as fancy cars and expensive jewelry.
Nope.
But it's not. It looks like it may have wound up in the hands of terrorists, Al-Shabaab to be exact. That Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda offshoot. So you had Somalis embezzling money from American taxpayers. The money is being sent back to Somalia, and there it's winding up in the hands of terrorists. In 2023, about $1.7 billion wound up back in Somalia of U.S. taxpayer money. What does this all mean politically? Well, for starters, Tim Walz continues to be one of the worst governors in America. Congratulations to Gavin Newsom for being off the hook for now. This is truly some of the worst stuff that we have ever seen out of state government. Walz turned a blind eye to all of it. And now Minnesota taxpayers are footing the bill for terrorism in the Middle East. It's more than obvious Tim Walz should, well, if he doesn't resign, at least should be ousted in 2026 when his term is up. Anyone complicit should be prosecuted. And there are serious questions about what's going on in Minneapolis. What other crimes have occurred and what lengths have people gone to enrich themselves? A lot of questions going on in Minneapolis right now, thanks to the reporting of Christopher Rufo.
And another reason to be suspicious of Tim Walz, in case you're wondering, like why I would throw that out there, like why would I just make such a claim like that about Tim Walz, is because this guy has been doing everything he possibly can to try and shield the fraud as it's happening. As reported here, there were more than 400 government whistleblowers about this fraud. 400 who all say that Tim Walz retaliated against them for blowing the whistle. 400. This has to be an offense which is criminal. 400 whistleblowers. There's got to be motivations there which are nefarious.
More than 400 employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services accusing Governor Tim Walz of failing to act on widespread fraud warnings and then retaliating against whistleblowers. That department writing on X, quote, Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Now, the claims come as some in Minnesota's Somali community continue to face allegations, with the New York Times reporting that federal prosecutors, quote, charged dozens of people with felonies, accusing them of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from a government program meant to keep children fed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's Governor Walz when asked about the situation yesterday.
take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just
this guy needs to go to jail. He needs to go to jail.
Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts.
You need to go to jail. Because why are you retaliating against whistleblowers who are actually helping you prevent fraud?
Criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can, but to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few.
You were about. I'm not demonizing them. I'm demonizing you. I'm demonizing you.
It's lazy.
President Trump has said he will be terminating the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota, citing fraudulent money laundering activity.
There you go. There you go. So that's why I reached that conclusion. 400 whistleblowers. 400 telling about fraud, stealing money meant for kids, stealing money meant for to help autism, homelessness. And he's supervising over that while holding himself out as some sort of great man, leader of the oppressed. Leader of the oppressed. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't believe that AAA bond rating is going to be lasting very much longer. Basically drag that entire state down the crapper. That's what he did. That's what he did. And that's what I got for you fine people. That's my show. I got a couple of chat rants over here that popped in. Uzelian said, Joe, you need to read what employees wrote. And he shares this. This is, we covered this over here. This is what he shared with me. There's a link. We covered it in that. In addition to retaliating against whistleblower, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance. Media and politicians supporting Tim Walz of the DFL agenda attacked whistleblowers who were trying to raise red flags on fraudulent activities. This is a cascade of systemic failures leading up to Tim Walz. Agency leaders appointed by Tim Walz willfully disregarded rules and laws to keep the fraud reports quiet, even to the extent of threatening families of whistleblowers. These same leaders are not qualified for their jobs, instead getting leadership jobs via Tim Walz's friendship. So state government were left floundering. DFL lawmakers refused to acknowledge fraud and deflected any serious conversation to stop fraud. Biased mainstream media such as WCCO and NPR showed absolutely no interest in covering fraud happening in our own state. Programs, especially in behavioral health and disability services, were built without any guardrails against fraud, all in an attempt to extract more funding from legislature and the federal government. As staff, we firsthand witnessed and observed fraud happening, yet we were shut down, reassigned, and told to keep quiet, sometimes more. Leadership did not want to appear to discriminate against certain communities, and we were unwilling to take action. Same crap that Walz was throwing out. It's lazy. Yeah, that's all crap. I don't believe that he's defending Somalians. Unwilling to take action such as stopping fraud that would have an adverse impact on their image. To date, no single agency leader has been held responsible for the role in fraud, whether it's Shireen Gandhi, Jess Geil, Jody Harpstead, Natasha Mers, Eric Grumdahl, or others. It's a structure created and maintained by Tim Walz, who has created an environment of interrelated agencies and institutions, including the media, that help foster fraud through retaliation and turning a blind eye in exchange for political gain in the form of high-power agency leadership, jobs, and other perks. This is what happens under socialism. This is exactly what happens under socialism. That's what this is. This is socialism in reality. Fundamentally, Tim Walz is dishonest, lacks ethics and integrity, has poor leadership abilities, and has never taken any accountability for his role in fraud. Instead, Tim Walz deflects, blaming national politics for his own failings, and distracts the public with inveterate lying. These lies include his reference of a budget surplus under his tenure. Fact is, Minnesota never had a surplus. We have been given federal ARPA funds that were conflated as surplus money. Otherwise, we'd be in deficit. And those ARPA funds, which were meant to be temporary funds, were used to create more leadership positions for Tim Walz's buddies. As such, we can't fight fraud in Minnesota alone, hence why we are appealing to the federal levels of government. We need all the help we can get, as Tim Walz's agency leaders have upped their brazen approach in covering up their knowledge of fraud. We're grateful to numerous solid politicians, especially the Fraud Committee and media outlets who are trying to halt fraud. We're also grateful to other whistleblowers who have bravely stepped up. Thank you, New York Times, for bringing the plight of Minnesotans to the national stage. That was in response to the New York Times putting a whole article how fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system under Tim Walz's watch. It's so bad, even the New York Times is outing Tim Walz for the complete failure that this human being is. Thank you for sharing that, Uzelian. Spud says, I doubt Tim Walz was the mastermind behind these schemes, but due to his connections, I'm sure Kamala found it desirable. Investigate all sanctuary cities and you'll find similar fraud. I bet, according to Decimal Threat. Yeah. Probably. There's a lot of reasons that they do this. I also want to thank Intelligent Talk for rating the stream. All you Intelligent Talk people, welcome. I am Good Logic. I urge you to please make sure you like, subscribe, maybe drop a comment, do all that cool algorithm stuff. One of the things I'll remind you of is as I've said here before, federal monies are in this fraud too. Apparently, according to Minnesota staff fraud reporting commentary. Yes. Yeah. Make that a federal crime. All right. So I'm going to remind you, please make sure that you like, share, subscribe. Don't touch lab meat. It's not meant for you. It was never lab meat's not meant for you. Just that's the public reminder. Lab meat was never meant for you. It's meant for they, them. Do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Don't touch it. You don't want it. No part of it. God willing, I will see you all tomorrow evening. Until then, have a good night. And as always, Godspeed.